Actually, I still haven't got the hang of this desktop stand. How are you? Well, I've been trying to get this video done for days now. It's been absolute mayhem here. It's currently 38 degrees Celsius and it's humid. And we keep getting health warnings, text messages and in the media about the heat wave that's apparently happening. I don't think it's that hot. It's uncomfortable and I feel awfully unwell, but it doesn't feel anywhere near as hot as it does get. But yesterday I started back at rehab, hydrotherapy and physiotherapy and whatnot. My physiotherapist now wants me to start walking again. The doctor told me he didn't want me walking. It was not beneficial to me at the time. And I'm still not convinced it will be in many ways. But when the physiotherapist explained to me yesterday why he wants me to start walking, it makes complete sense. I was to start today, early in the morning. I don't do mornings. I'm not a morning person. I never have been. I tried to tell him that. I tried to explain to him that I'm in excruciating pain of a morning and it takes me hours to get started. But he didn't seem to care. He just said, I want you up early when the sun comes up to go for your walk. Oh, Jesus. So I set my alarm to get up. The alarm went off. I couldn't get up. It was hours later, but I went for a walk. And one of the issues I have is that he doesn't want me walking too far. I always overdo it. Always overdo it. He couldn't give me a distance or a time frame. He just asked me to do a small amount and then turn around and come back. What's a small amount? I don't know. So I thought I'd walk to the end of the street and come back. But when I got there, I thought, well, I feel really good. I might go a bit further. So I think I walked about 600 metres and thought, I could keep going. And then all of a sudden the dog threw herself on the ground and said, I'm not going any further. I thought, oh, far out. So I turned back and started heading back. And I got about a quarter of the way back and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm in agony. Everything hurts. I've got lead in my muscles. So it was really hard to get back up. And then I've been sick ever since. I feel awful, but I digress. I have been doing orders, trying to get needle books finished. I need to get some more kits together because they're going more successfully than I expected them to, which is great. It took me 5 days to go through all the orders and gather everything together and package it and get it all ready to go to the post office. So I took that down yesterday. I was at the post office for over an hour and a half doing all the parcels. And thankfully I was able to post the parcel to Canada that we have been waiting for. It must be 5 or 6 weeks now. So finally I was able to send that. So that was a huge relief, huge relief. While I was out yesterday, I thought I would pop into a couple of the local op shops. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's probably 5 or 6 in the local suburb. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's at least 5, I think. But there's only two that I regularly go to because the others usually don't have any of the things I'm looking for. So I usually go straight to the linens to look for doilies. That's usually my first. And then if I've got time, I might have a look at art stuff, art and craft, and sometimes clothing, and then sometimes China. I haven't gone to the China or the crystal for ages because I've been very good for years. I haven't bought any more. I got a couple of pieces recently because they were 50 cents. But I don't normally go to China anymore. I've got a lovely collection at home already. I'm not doing the hosting high teas anymore, so I don't have a need for nice china, but I do like it. So anyway, yesterday I went to the first place, and inside the door I haven't bought them out, they had these glass food storage containers. So it was a glass base with a bamboo lid. There's quite a few of them. They're obviously brand new. They must have had excess stock there. There was 3 different sizes. And I did a quick Google and I thought, I'm sure these are worth a lot more than they're asking. And if they are, and they were a good price, and I was in need of a couple. I've been looking at decor ones. I think they're decor. The ones from Woolies or Target, and I haven't bought them because I don't want to pay $15 or more for them. So I've just been waiting for them to come on sale or something. But I ended up Googling these ones, and the size that I had, they started at $16, and they had $4 on it for the largest one. So I thought, bugger it. I picked up a couple. I picked up 3 actually. So that'll do me. Again, don't normally buy that sort of stuff, but I saw them there. I have a need for those, so I bought them. And they're heavy. They're thick glass. They're quite heavy. As I turned around, I noticed some vintage china on the shelves behind me, and I thought, oh, that's really pretty. And then I noticed more and more and more and more. And this place hasn't had nice vintage china for a while. And when they have had it, the price has been ridiculous. Like, we're talking $75 upwards for a teacup and saucer set, like the trio. So when I was looking yesterday, I saw a tennis set, and I've been thinking recently I wouldn't mind a little tennis set because when I get up in the morning, I have my cuppa, and I have a heap of vitamins and minerals and supplements that I take, and I usually put them in a saucer, like a little vintage saucer. And I thought maybe if I get a tennis set, I can put them on So I found this tennis set yesterday. So I picked it up. It's so pretty. I don't think it's vintage. To me, it looks like it might be as much as 20 years old. I haven't actually Googled it to discover, but it's very sweet. It's exactly what I was hoping to get. It's got the lovely, and it's actually Royal Albert. And I paid $5 for it. So I was really chuffed with that. And then I noticed a heap of trios, and I kept telling myself I didn't need them. I could have bought so many. They were beautiful. I mean, I couldn't have because I can't afford it. But and then I saw a pretty trio, and it had purple flowers on it, and I picked it up, but it wasn't priced. And I thought it can't be more than $6 because all the other ones had, except for this one, the tennis set. They were all similar vintage, maybe 1920s, 1930s or a bit earlier. So I picked it up, put it in my bag with the big glass containers. And then I saw some Bunnikins cups. There was 3 of them. And I thought, oh my goodness, they're like the ones that I had at my grandmother's. I don't know whatever happened to them. So I picked them up. They weren't priced. And again, I thought, surely they're not going to be more than $6. So I picked them up and put them in my bag. I thought I'd like to add those to my collection. Maybe keep them for my grandchildren if I ever get any. So I did that. And then I found this I only bought this one because it's so pretty. Look at this. So this one, and the matching teacup. And it was $5, and I thought it must be cheap because it's not a 3-piece set. It's got the little plate missing, the side plate, dessert plate, whatever it is. When I googled it, they didn't come out with one. That's the whole set. So I was really happy with that. That's a coal cloth. I can't even pronounce it. So I'll use that one because it's so pretty. I like pretty things like this. I do use them. I take turns changing my mind which ones I use. And then I've been buying small crystal items because I'm going to start making pin cushions. So crystal, china, egg cups, whatever. I've only got 3 or 4 items so far. But I saw this little parfait bowl or dessert bowl. Crystal, it's lead crystal. That was $2. When I googled it, it's worth over $100. Incredible. I can't remember the brand. Very famous brand I've heard of before. But yeah, I was really chuffed with that one. And then I picked up this. I thought it was a little trinket bowl. It's very cute. Still not exactly sure what it is. My research says it's a side plate, a dessert side plate, but I don't know. I've never seen them before. I'm not sure. And normally I don't pick up fruit like this, but it just really appealed to me. It was 50 cents. They charged me 50 cents for it, and it's a royal standard. So I thought that'd be cute to put little bobbins or pins and needles or things in on my little desk. So I took them up to the counter. I bought an iron as well. There was a new Russell Hobbs iron there. I need a new iron. I think I spoke about my irons in the last video or the one before. I'm really struggling. They're falling apart. They're garbage. And it was only, I think it was $6, so I bought that. I haven't tried it yet to see if it actually works, but I bought that. Went up to the counter and I had the trio with the purple flowers and the bunnykins that weren't priced. So I went up to the young shop assistant who was behind the counter and I said to her, look, I'm not sure if I'm going to buy everything yet because some of the items aren't priced, so I was wondering if you could please price them for me. And she's like, oh, hang on a minute, I have to go and get the manager. So she went and got the manager and the manager came out. She was a full of figured lady like myself, and she ambled out through the door across the floor, which was quite a distance, and she had a mouthful of food, and as she was walking all this food was spilling out of her mouth. And I thought, oh goodness. And then she came over to the counter, walked in behind it. Actually, she didn't even walk behind it. She walked up beside me and looked at the things on the counter and looked at me and looked at the shop assistant and said, what do you want? And the young girl said, these items don't have prices on them. Can you please price them? And with that, she looked at me and said, what have you done with the labels? And I said, pardon? And I was just dumbfounded at the question. I've kept thinking in my head, why is she asking me that? Obviously, they must have people peel the labels off. And I couldn't say anything else but pardon. And she said to me, all these items were labelled. Obviously, you've peeled the labels off thinking you'll get them cheaper. And I'm like, pardon me? And then the young shop assistant said to her, well, actually, see all those items on the bench here beside me, all these china items, and there must have been 25 items. She said, none of those have prices on them either. Customers keep bringing them up asking how much they are, and they're all just sitting on the counter there because they haven't been priced. And I thought, oh, okay. The manager didn't respond. She picked up the trio and she just plonked it back on the counter, and I shuddered thinking, oh my gosh, it's a wonder it didn't smash. And remembering that these other items were $4 and $5 or $5, $3 for this, 50 cents for that. She looked at me and said, I want at least $15 for that. And I went, oh, okay. And then she picked up the bunnykins and looked over each one of them individually, one at a time, plonked them back on the counter and said, and at least $10 for those. And I said, $10 for the 3 or $10 each? And she said, each, thank you very much. And I said, okay, thank you. And I looked at the shop assistant and I said, thank you, I'll leave those items please today. And she said, okay, no worries. Well, with that, the manager turned around and said to me, what's wrong with them? And I said, pardon? And she said, what's wrong with them? Why won't you take them? Why are you leaving them here? And I said, they're not within my budget today, actually. I mean, not in my budget today, thank you. And I was actually thinking, I just don't want to pay that much for those items today, in this moment in time. Yes, they're probably worth it, but I didn't want to pay that much for them at the time. In hindsight, I probably should have got the Bunnykins now, but anyway, that's neither here nor there, really. So when I said to her they're not within my budget today, she then turned around and said, well, if you're going to be like that, I want at least $30 for the trio and $30 each for the mugs. And I took a breath in and my brain's going, what the hell is happening? I don't understand this. I've already made it clear that I'm not going to take them today. And now she's increased the price and telling me that she wants me to take them. And with that, I'm still trying to process in my brain, thinking, what on earth is happening? And she said to me, I can get those Bunnykin mugs, I can get at least $30 each for those online. And I went, okay. But she kept pushing me. She kept saying, I don't understand why you're not taking them. And I said, I've already explained why I'm not taking them. They're not within my budget. I'm not prepared to pay that today. And she said, well, now I want $36 each for the mugs and $45 for the trio. And I said, oh, that's okay. Maybe if you put them online, you'll get that money. And she said, no, you can take them. And I said, no, thank you. No, I'm not taking them. I'll just take what I've got here, thank you. So by this stage, as we're having this conversation, I've tapped the reader and paid for these other items. And in my head, I'm thinking, I just want to leave. If I hadn't already commenced the payment process, I think I would have just walked out by now. But I'd paid for these items, so I wanted to take them with me. Well, by that stage, the shop assistant said to the manager, can you please wrap these items for this lady while I help this customer? And she said, no, I'm not wrapping them. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I can't believe what's happening. So I said to the shop assistant, can you please pass me the paper and I'll wrap them? So she handed me a pile of paper, and with that, the manager snatched it out of my hand and commenced to wrap the china. And still, I'm standing there. I think my jaw must have been on the floor. And I'm thinking, I don't understand what's happening here. So as she's wrapping each item, she's plonking it on the counter. And she did the first one, and I wrapped it up a bit tighter and pushed it to the side, because in my mind I was thinking the glass storage containers and the iron were the heaviest items. I've actually got a feeling I'm going to have to go and check if I've got that iron. I've got a feeling I've left it in the shop, I don't remember packing it. Goodness me. Anyway, I'm thinking I want to put the heavy food containers in the bottom. They were really heavy. So as she's wrapping the china, I'm sort of pushing them aside, thinking I'll put those on top. And then I thought, she wrapped each item individually, but I sort of started packing these wrapped on top of each other, so they sort of nestled neatly inside each other. And then the same with the cups, thinking that would be the best way to do it, to carry it in the bag. But each time she wrapped an item, after I moved the first one, she then proceeded to slam them on the lid of the canister, one of the canisters, the glass canisters. So I'd pick it up and sort of move it, try and organise them, but every time I'd move something, she'd grab it again and push it further away from me. I just could not comprehend what was happening. So eventually, she wrapped the china and the crystal. The food containers were still not wrapped, and I was standing there waiting. And she said, "What are you waiting for?" I said, "I was just waiting to wrap the containers." And she said, "I'm not wrapping those." So I said, "Okay, thank you." So I picked them up, put them in the bag, put the china on top. And then I turned around and I said to her, "Thank you so much for your help today." And I looked at the shop assistant and thanked her and didn't get a response from either of them. And I just can't understand what happened. I'm still flabbergasted. I still can't understand what transpired. And, you know, did I offend her, or is she always like that? Is that just, I haven't come across this lady before. I have shopped there. I have been, before Christmas, I was going there once a week to have a look, sometimes twice a week. And sometimes I'd only buy one 50-cent doily, you know. I've never seen this lady in there before. But oh my goodness, I just still can't believe this interaction. I don't know. I was dumbfounded. I don't understand why, if you were managing a business, and a charitable business at that, why you would behave in that manner. I don't get it. Maybe it's because I've worked in management previously. I've studied business and management for many years. I've managed several businesses over the years. Maybe that's why I'm so sensitive to it, or maybe it's just the fact that you don't treat anyone in that manner for any circumstance. Yeah. So that was my tale of my experience yesterday that I'm still trying to process. I'm just flabbergasted. Honestly, I don't understand what happened. So after I left there, I went to the one across the road, and they often, at the one across the road, I can pick up a couple of doilies. Not always. Excuse me, I'm drinking some water because it's really warm here. And the one across the road only takes cash. So I had a tiny little bit of cash, not much, because I don't normally find much in there anyway, but it turns out I didn't quite have enough, but that's okay. So I wanted to share with you what I got there. Now, the first thing I saw was hanging on a rack out the front, and it was it's sort of like a wall hanging, I suppose. Very 1990s in my mind. Actually did a class in the 90s. I think my 30-year-old daughter was a baby when I did this class. In fact, it was one I did with Jenny Rofe, who is a quilt designer. So I spotted this hanging there, facing the roadway, and it's not really my cup of tea, but when I saw it, I thought I can deconstruct that, because I've been wanting to make some more of these flowers, but they're time consuming, and because I'm such a perfectionist, they're very time consuming. But I'd like to put some on my, Kate and Ness pouches that I'm doing, and a few other things. So I spotted this hanging there, and it was on, I don't know if you remember, they were big again in the 90s, and they were quite expensive at the time. Well, I thought they were at the time. And they were different sized rods, and they had wire at the top, and it often had the wire formed in heart shapes. There might have been 3 across the top, which is exactly what the one was yesterday. Or, I think a kettle or a star or things like that. They were very folksy, folk arty, rustic, sort of American, what's the word I'm thinking? Not cottage industry. Oh, I don't know. You'd know what I mean anyway, but I picked it up and it was half price. So it was 50 cents they were asking for this thing. Now, because I wanted to deconstruct it, I'll show you it. It's hard to show you because it's a bit big for the frame. It's heavy. So it's just this wall quilt thingy, and someone's made the flowers and needle turned the leaves and whatnot. It's quite basic, it's effective, it's pretty, but I saw it and I thought, for 50 cents, I think I'll buy that and deconstruct it to use the flowers. Okay. Because I was going to deconstruct it, I took the hanger out, took the rod out, and put the wire back in and straightened it up and asked them if they'd like to resell the rod. And she said, well, how are you going to hang it? And I said, I'm not going to hang it. And she said, well, what are you going to do with it? And I said, oh, you probably don't want to know. She said, no, tell me. I said, I'm going to deconstruct it and use it in other projects. And she went, oh, okay, if you're not going to use it. She said, I don't think we'll sell it though. I said, why don't you just sell it as a craft item or a... She said, oh yeah, I didn't think of that. I said, even if you only get 50 cents, resell it. Oh, okay. Then I got this, which is 70 centimetres by 140, and it's pure wool. So I bought this to use in the needle books. And then I found this one. This is the first one I spotted, I think. This is pure wool as well. Wool suiting. How much is in that one? It's not written on it. I'm sure it had something like 3 metres or 4 metres in that one, but I noticed it's got bits cut out, so it's already had something made from it, so it's got, you know, but I thought that's still needlebook size, so there's usable bits there at least, well, and more. So I got that bit, and then I got, oh my goodness, I'm running out of room, guys. Oh, I put this back, and then I went back to get it again. There's 3 metres by 3 metres of this. And the reason I put it back was because I thought, oh, I'm not going to use that. It's pretty, but... And then I thought later, you know what? Every time I go out, if I've got a formal event or a function or a presentation or a nice dinner or something, I often go to my wardrobe and think, I don't really have anything nice to wear, or if I do, it's like I've worn it to death. Everyone I'm going out with has seen it a million times. So I saw this and thought, I could make myself a nice evening top to wear out. Now I'm a jeans and t-shirt or jeans and linen top person, or jeans and I can't remember what they're called, like floral blouse sort of person. I don't often dress up, but when I do dress up I like to look nice, and I often go out, not often, when I do know that I'm going out to an event or a function, I'll go out looking for a garment, usually hoping to get a nice top. I can never find anything I like these days. I haven't found anything I like for years. So I thought if I get this, I can potentially make something that I will like. And as I said, 3 metres by 3 metres, $5. So I was happy with that. And then the same place, I found some doilies. Some of these, she didn't charge me full price for all of these. Some of them are a bit, this is all hand done. It's linen. There's a little bit of wear and tear. Most of these ones are clean though, which is unusual. They're often, when I pick them up this cheap, they're usually stained. I mean, I'll still wash them, soak them and wash them, but then I got this little one. This is quite heavy. I'm pretty sure this is cotton. It's almost a drill, this fabric. It's quite heavy, unusually heavy. It's got a nice crochet edge, filet lace. Then I got this one. This is on a piece of damask, and I'm guessing it may have been a napkin because you can sort of see a border on one side and it's been cut. It's lovely quality, vintage quality. Oh, it's got, oh wow, I didn't see that before. It's a pond. So it's actually got lotus blossoms, lily pads, there's a dragonfly, bulrushes. It's got a few holes in it. But there's a swan. That's beautiful. I didn't see that before. So I might end up rescuing that after all. That's quite pretty, that image. Oh, and there's two more swans over here. So there's that one. It's amazing what you can see out in the daylight. And then I've found this one, and again, I'm pretty sure this is hand stitched. Yeah, it is. Or is it? Hang on, give me a minute. Yep. Very, very fine. That's the back. So that one's been hand stitched. That's a lovely linen, I suppose, tray cloth. Might be a little bit bigger than a tray cloth. It's got some holes I just noticed. There's some holes up here. Any more? There's some rust marks on it. They're tiny, they're only small. There's some more holes. So that's good because there's another hole. I bought this with the intent of having it as a cutter, but if they're not damaged, I don't cut them. I find it really hard to cut them. And this one, I'll leave that one a bit later because it's really sweet when I worked out what it was. Now, I don't often buy crochet doilies anymore because I don't use them as much, but sometimes if they're small enough, this might be a little bit too big, I can use them in the needle books. So that one might be good. Again, I don't often buy these anymore, but it was so cute. That little tiny centre, linen centre, is one of the smallest I've ever seen. I've got a couple like this, but they're not quite that small. So I thought that one was cute. This one's cute. This is a good size. Little. That's linen, that one. That's the front there. This one's cute. This has got a little bit of damage. You just dropped out for a minute, guys, sorry. So if I wanted to use this in a needle book, what I would do is undo all this crochet, take photographs of it first, and then copy that edge in and redo it so it's not damaged. I've done that to a few. This little one, that's a cute little one. I'm pretty sure this is a machine stitched one. Oh, no, I'm sorry, it's hand stitched. I'd say some poor little person's made multiples of these. And then this one, it was interesting, I was watching a linen sale last night on Instagram, and one of the doilies came up. Had butterflies on it, and I looked over at my pile and I thought, oh my gosh, it's the same one. I nearly bid on it, and then I thought, oh, I don't need to. So that one's hand stitched too, on linen. And then I was quite excited about this. I should have brought it out. I don't know if you remember, weeks ago, maybe a couple of months ago, at the same shop, I bought this really unusually coloured, greeny, sort of teal coloured doily with a crochet edge. And I'd never seen this colour done before, so someone's obviously made it. So I've grabbed it because it was unusual. It was a bigger one, you know, maybe so big, with just the linen bit. Well, yesterday I saw these, and I'm pretty sure they're from the same set. I haven't even checked yet. So there's this one, and then this smaller one. So I was really chuffed to find those. And again, I don't go to that shop that often, so that was very serendipitous to find those. I had to get this one. This would be so stunning in a needle book. Look at that. It's perfect. So this is when I buy crochet doilies now, when they're like this. very colourful, well not very colourful, nice and colourful, and perfect size for a needle book. Now this last one I want to show you, I didn't notice it at first. I think I picked up this, which I assume is a napkin, it's linen, and I noticed the initials on it, GH. Oh, that's cute. It was actually with some hankies, so I thought, surely that's not a hanky, it's too heavy. It's a napkin, it's got a bit of hole in it there. And then I bought this other piece, and I didn't realise until I got it home that it matches. This piece is a lot more worn, and it has the same initials on it. So I'm assuming, look at the holes in it. This was the placemat or tray cloth for this person. And this was their napkin, and I'm guessing that they use this probably every day because this is so worn. I thought that was absolutely beautiful, and I don't think I will. I bought this as a cutter. I don't think I can cut it. It's just gorgeous, and it obviously has a story. I mean, they all have a story, but the fact that it's got the initials that someone has painstakingly hand stitched, look how perfect they are. Look at the back. With the matching napkin, I think it is so precious. And yeah, that might just go in my, nothing will be done with it. I might even use it myself sometimes when I sit down, but I thought that was one of the sweetest things I've ever seen. So, now that I've had show and tell, oh, I've got more. I forgot. My mum turned up the other day with some things for me. Quite a few. So, I've been collecting these for a while to use in needle books and other things, and a couple of my family members have been adding to them for me, so I'm just trying to get them out to start showing you. There's quite a few, and they're trying to put them in some order so I can see what I'm doing. So as I mentioned, I started buying some of these probably early last year, late the year before, and every now and then I might buy another piece or two to add to it. And yeah, some of my family members are on board now and they're helping me add to them. So I've got this gorgeous coloured rickrack. I've got this in a blue and a mauve as well, I think. They're not vintage. I do have vintage ones, but these are quite a nice quality. They're not, they feel like cotton. They're not synthetic like some that I've come across. So there's the rickrack, and then I've got some beautiful quality velvet ribbon. There's a purple one. Then I've got this bluey grey one. And they are I can't tell you, I'm sorry. What is that? Must be, is it 10 mil? Where'd that other one go? And I've got it in a yeah, 10 mil in a pink. So far in the 10 mil, I've got those colours. Then in a $20 ml, I've got that nice bluey grey again. We've got this mauve, light mauve colour. Try and put them where you can see them. This nice tealy colour. That's a pretty colour. And I believe when Mum ordered these, she's watching what I make and has been trying to match the colours for me. And then we've got, I think that's still the 20 ml. This is a 25 ml, this one, so we've widened now. So they're 20 ml. This is a 25 ml in a beautiful, like vintage pink. Then we've got this pretty, I suppose, leaf green in the 25 ml. It's hard to see the colour. And the quality of this velvet is beautiful compared to some that I've seen. It's absolutely gorgeous. Not as good as the vintage silk velvet ribbon that I have been gifted by a friend a while ago. Not as beautiful as that, but still quite beautiful nonetheless. Now we've got, this one doesn't have a size, but I'm guessing it must be closer to 3 ml because it's wider than that. Beautiful dusty, like vintage dusky pink colour. And then this leaf green again in the wider colour. And then we've got these are 38 ml by the looks. Then we've got a royal blue. That's a very nice colour. It's hard to pick them up through this monitor. Then we've got this beautiful dusty mauvey colour. It's different to that colour again. So this is a pink and this is a mauve. Maybe I should start another pile. Oops, it's going to fall down. Then we've got, this one doesn't look as wide now. This is, no idea. They don't all have the widths written on them. This one's telescoping, sticking out. Then we've got this nice tealy colour again. Then we've got this nice soft pink. Almost, it's a warm pink, that one, isn't it? Like an apricot-y pink. Then we've got this beautiful vintage dusty blue colour. So there's those, and then, but wait, there's more. This piece of lace, she thought this piece of lace was only about so wide, but It is much white. It's beautiful. It's all cotton. That's it there. It's very big, but it's very pretty. Very nice. It's got this smell to it. It's not a dirty smell. It's the other day I said it was chemical. It's not a chemical smell either. It reminds me of something that I've smelled years ago. You know what I think it smells like? The old school paint when you were a kid. I think it smells like that. Then I got another one of these. I bought one of these months ago in an apricot colour. So she got me a purple one. These are like replica vintage trims or reproduction vintage trims. I actually have some vintage in a very similar design somewhere. Then what can I show you next? This is another one I bought some of in I think a pink 12 months or so ago. So she got me some more of these because they're just beautiful quality. This beautiful woven ribbon. Look at that. Very pretty. And again, I've got vintage ribbons that are very similar. These are not vintage, they're new, but they remind me of some vintage ribbons I have or that I have seen. And the vintage ones I have, I only have very small amounts, so for now these would be good to use, I think. And what are we up to? Then we've got, is that the same? They're the same. I wonder if she realises that. So we got 2 bags the same, which totals 4 rolls in that purple one. Then we've got, what can I show you next? I was actually looking at this one a while ago. I don't normally get orange, buy orange, but because I'm currently doing that orange needle book, I had looked at this. And again, it's another woven ribbon. But just look at the quality of it. I'm really impressed. Look at that. So flowers and butterflies. It's a very nice quality ribbon. It's almost like a, what's it called? Grosgrain. It's almost like a fine grosgrain with embroidered over. It's woven. It's a very nice one too. And then these next ones remind me of vintage ribbons as well. So I'm wondering if they're also reproduction. This one's actually black, and again it's woven. Absolutely gorgeous, look at that. So pretty. It's that one. And then the same one in, I don't know what you'd call it. It's like a sky blue, but a vintage coloured sky blue, if you could call it that. Very pretty. I don't think it's showing you the correct colour. It's a bit lighter in real life, and it's more, it's muted. It's sort of got a real vintage tinge to it, which I don't think that's actually picking up through the monitor. And then we've got, this one's beautiful too. Another, I wonder if this is another vintage reproduction, because this looks vintage in style to me. Again, another woven ribbon, but look at that. Stunning. There's that funny, I'm not a green person. I don't like green, I don't like orange, and I don't like brown. But that is such a pretty leaf green. Yeah. It's got grey and then black. It's quite pretty, very pretty. But wait, there's more. Again, didn't realise these ribbons were as wide as what they are. So I know I will still use them, but I don't want to cut them either. They're stunning. Look at this. All embroidered, machine embroidered, but absolutely gorgeous. Look at that. So pretty. So there's that one, like a slate blue, I guess. And then the same one in green. Look at that, wow. They're so pretty. Wow. And then one last one. The same one in a, like a steel grey, I suppose. It's almost a blue grey even. Look at that. And there's only a yard in each piece. They're not measured in metres, they're yards. So it's about 10-15 centimetres short of a metre. But they're so pretty. I've got to work out. I'm sorry, that was my pager, weekly page test or something. So yes, there's those. Very lucky to be gifted all of those. I'm feeling very spoiled again. Now I don't know what I've done with all the bags to put them back in. So, as I started to mention earlier, excuse me while I turn these notifications off, or you guys are going to keep hearing them. So, I'm still working on needle books, but today I thought I've actually had three people in the last week ask me how I do my English paper piecing. So I thought I'd share a bit about that today. Now, I'm just going to say a bit of a disclaimer. I'm no expert in English paper piecing. I have been doing it for a few years. I don't necessarily follow the rules as such, but I've worked out some of my own methods that work for me. So I thought I'd share those. Now, of course, there's always the, you can always use the glue pen for paper piecing. And I do like it if I've got it, if I can afford it, but it's normally, using the glue pen's usually not within my budget. So, just bear with me for a moment, guys, while I put these ribbons away. So I'm often looking for budget solutions because I don't work, I haven't been able to work for years due to my illnesses. I can do short-term work or, you know, casual, part-time, but I can no longer maintain 12 hours plus a day for 7 days a week like I was doing. So I'm often looking for budget-friendly solutions to doing techniques. In saying that, a lot of what I create is very I want to say old school. So I'll give you an example. I'm trying to design some crochet charts for filet crochet. Now, I could upload it, what I want to do, into an app, and that will then transfer it into a graph, into a chart for me. Very time efficient, but I've got out a book of graph paper and I'm doing it by hand. And as I'm working on it, it's sort of progressing a bit. It's changing and morphing as I go. So that's one example. You know, I'll do things from scratch. I do a lot of things old school. This is one of the reasons I originally got into stitching as a teenager, maybe younger, because it was budget friendly. There were materials readily available on hand, and I've often been able to pick them up very inexpensively, secondhand or free of charge. In saying that, back to the hexagons, to the English paper piecing. Now, as I was saying, you can use the glue pens if you are so inclined to do so. But as I was explaining, they're not cheap, those glue pens. They are great. When I am working, I have bought them because I'm more in a better position to be able to afford them. And the fact that I did work for quite a few years in a quilt store was helpful for that as well. I was able to, you know, I was using what we were selling and they were good products. So, you know, no hesitation at all to use them. I'm just, sorry guys, I'm not trying to drag this out. I'm just trying to get all my supplies together to show you this. Just dropped my little ruler. They're all here. They're just in pouches and bags and things. So, one thing I do is, if I'm really struggling with my dexterity, I might just use a bit of Yoo-hoo. I've usually got Yoo-hoo for journal making and other things that I do. It's not as good for the simple reason that it's a bit more difficult to peel the paper out when it comes time to peel it out, because this stuff sticks, it works. It's great for sticking fabric together instead of basting. I like to baste. Some of the projects I do, I will use this. It washes out. It's very easy to use. It's an inexpensive product. It's great. That's one of my secrets that I don't normally give away. So now you're all being privy to that. So I've got out my large hexes today. I've been working on this quilt for years. I should finish it. My manager, when I was working in the quilt store, put this kit together for me. A lady came in one day with a photograph from a magazine. It was a Women's Weekly or something, or Better Homes and Gardens, or Country Style magazine or something. This quilt was on this person's bed in this photograph. So my manager that I was working with, she was great with picking colours, pulled this all together. And I said, I love that, so I ended up buying one as well. So I've got these out because I thought they'd be easier to see on the monitor. This larger size. I've got tiny little ones I've been doing lately too, and I will show you how, because to me this is important. When I recently purchased some hexagons from the op shop, they'd been cut out and laced up, tacked onto the paper like this. Not these ones, they were smaller ones. I think they were 1-inch hexagons. So they'd been put together, but they'd just been stitched through as I've been shown previously. And what I found happens is they're not stitched tightly onto the paper, onto the card. So when you go to piece them together, they warp just ever so slightly. It's not always noticeable until you go to stitch them together. And then as you're stitching, after you stitch a couple, I haven't picked my glasses up. and there's a big storm brewing. So as you stitch them together, the more you join, it gets to a point where your corners no longer match up. And you can keep stitching, but what will happen is your quilt will start to warp and it won't sit flat once it's all constructed. This needle's a bit big, a bit exaggerated, but I'll be able to use it to get the job done for this purpose to demonstrate. So I've come up, and I mean, I'm sure this isn't my own technique, I'm sure other people do it, but I've developed this technique that I like to use, which gives me the result that I like. So I've got my thread threaded up. Now I use either a top stitch or I'm using a crochet cotton today. What's that? Number 60. So it's only a fine one, but I like these, they're stronger. You know, I could use sometimes I like to use the cheap, inexpensive cotton or polyester so I don't waste thread. But for this instance, I like to use this. I pre-cut these a while ago, so I haven't checked them to see if they're square and straight and whatnot. But let's pick one out of the pile and have a demo. So, because okay, number one, your fabric needs to be pressed nice and crisp and flat. I have not done these yet, but I prefer to starch them. And the reason is, for me, it keeps your fabric nice and square and firm. It's easier to fold when it's starched. I should have prepped some before I came out here. I didn't think, sorry. So this has not been starched. If I remember, I will starch them. I'll take out a hexagon. I'm sure I'm going to run out of these as well because the quilt I'm doing is supposedly king size. Now these have been pre-cut, as you can see. That's quite a sufficient border around them. That would be, I assume, about 1/2 inch. Let's have a look. And of course, if you're doing smaller hexagons, you will not need a 1/2 inch border. Oh, my tape measure was jammed. Yeah, it is about 1/2 inch border around this size. What size is this hexagon? 2.5 inch. Oh, sorry, you can't see that. It's not in shot. 2.5 inch hexagon. So, now what I do, with this larger size, it may be beneficial, and again, I try not to, just because it's difficult to pull it out. Put a little dab, just a little dab of glue in the center. You don't want much because the more you put, the harder it is to pull that paper out. It's just to hold the paper in place while you're stitching. Oh, bum. I lined it up and then it stuck to my finger. So I just press that down a little bit to see if it'll hold there. I might move this out of the road because I'm not in your shot very clearly, am I? Okay. We've got those. It's not centered very well, is it? Let's have another go. Let's slide it across a little bit. You can see that had already stuck. I think I'm getting a little bit anxious because the storm's coming. Okay. So now what I do is fold down the first side and finger press it nice and firmly. Run my finger along there. Now, you can use one of those rollers. I don't have one, or I probably would. Have you seen those? It's like a handle with a roller. I don't remember what they're called. They weren't really around when I was working in the quilting industry. So I still use my fingers. I'd like to buy one. Maybe one day I will. There's a lovely wooden set around at the moment with a clapper and a few other things. So I always go in the same direction, and I guess it depends on whether you're left or right-handed. And I apologise if I'm yelling. I feel like I've got to yell over the wind at the moment if I don't get blown away. So I always work in an anti-clockwise direction on these. I don't know why, it just seems to be what's comfortable for me. Make sure this next side is tucked in nice and firmly. And now I'm finger pressing again. And you can use, can potentially use something else to press that side down. Sometimes I use the glue stick like this, or another useful item is your scissor handle, just to give it a nice crisp fold. Again, we go to the next side and finger press that one down, making sure those corners are nice and neat and crisp. Finger press that down. And again, a lot of people don't worry too much about this. I find it makes all the difference. It might just be little things. They do add time to what you're doing, but you will notice it in the finished product. It will be a huge difference in the finished product. Finger press again. Make sure it's all pressed up right against that edge of the paper. And again, the next edge. Now with this last side, I do it a bit differently to most people. Most people will we come to this edge, and most people will just fold that down. I don't. I come up to this corner, and I do fold it down and finger press it. So let's finger press this first point. We're not pressing right up into this corner yet, because what I'm going to do is open that out again. Hopefully you can see that. And tuck this side under so that first fold is on top. So now every one of those folds is in the same direction. Does that make sense? I'm not suggesting you guys don't understand. I'm suggesting that I'm not clear in my explanation. So they all now lay over the top on the left-hand direction. Then I come along with my needle and thread, and just going to double check how I've done that. Yeah, okay. So now I will start. Let's start on this longer side, just because, that doesn't always happen. Now I'm just going to use my needle to make sure that is tucked right up in there, as firmly against that paper as I can. I'm also going to now see if I can get you in a bit closer. I'm also going to now use the point of my needle to pull that fabric over as far as possible on this side and hold it with my finger. This is a bit tricky. You've got to have 8 hands. Make sure that folds right up there firmly, nice and crisp, and then use your needle to pull that down. Now, we want to hold that with our thumb or finger where we've just pulled that in nice and firmly. And I'm going to start, I've got a knot in the end of my thread, just a quilter's knot or an overhand knot. And I'm going to come in on this edge about, half a centimetre away from that fold, and then Now, I don't do big stitches. Some people will only do one stitch in each corner, and this is where it becomes problematic when you fold it together. Another thing I do that's different is I'm coming back and I'm stitching that again. And I'm just going to pull that firmly, not too tight that it buckles it, but quite firm so that fabric's in nice and tight. Now, as I'm going here, I'm going to do this, or am I? Because it's larger, I'm going to stitch down through the paper. And at the same time, I am using my thumb, I'm pulling that fabric as tight against that paper as I can. Then I'm going to come back up and I'm just doing, that's not very straight, but it shouldn't matter too much. I'm just doing tacking stitches now, or basting stitches. Again, and I don't want these any more than 1 centimetre apart, maybe even closer. These other ones I've done are even closer than that. Okay, so it doesn't have to be neat, but the main thing is we're making sure that fabric is nice and firm against that paper. Now, ideally, we'd want to do it without stitching through the paper, only because the more you stitch through it, the more it wears and it makes it harder to reuse. They don't last as long, but as I mentioned, I'd prefer to have nice crisp edges because it makes so much difference when you come to piece it together. Now we're up to that point. I'm using my thumbs to pull that fabric down as tight and firm as possible. I'm going to use my needle to hold that against that edge and make sure that's nice and firm. Now, you might be able to see it's slightly buckled, so that tells me that's not pulled in quite as tight as it could be, and I'm going to use my needle just to drag it, and then again with this side. And while I'm doing that, I'm using my thumb and forefinger to hold them in place. Now I'm going to come up here just beside that fold. I haven't come up in a very good location because now, so I've come up here, I'm just going to go above it a fraction. And you don't always have to do this, but I'm doing this because I want to do that stitch where it's going to pull those sides in towards that center. And now I come through with my second stitch to pull that nice and firmly into that corner. Now again, we go around, pulling that fabric up as firm against that edge as possible. I hope you guys can see I'm looking underneath the camera to do this, so I'm concentrating so hard that I can't see if it's still in shot. So I'm just moving around here, doing those little basting stitches, pulling the fabric as tight against that edge as I can without folding the paper over. Now ideally we want to come up just about here-ish, so not like the last one. So when we get to this point, we fold him in nice and firmly, making sure that corner's not folded. Now we want, this is where I came up with the last stitch, just here. So that will now give me nice room to go in to do that corner stitch. Now we come in with that second stitch over that corner, which ensures that we're pulling those edges in as firmly as possible so we get nice crisp corners when we come to sew it together. And again, oh goodness, I'm cramping, I'm sorry. Again, working around the edge. Using our thumbs and forefingers to pull that fabric nice and taut as we go. Using our little basting stitches to hold it in place. Now if I was using smaller hexagons, like the little 2-inch or the, I think I've got 1 centimetre ones, maybe even a bit smaller than that, I do the same technique, but I do smaller stitches, that's all. And of course the smaller the hexagon, you won't need as many stitches in between along the edges. Again, fold, making that sure that's nice and crisp and firm into that corner. Using the needle if necessary to pull it taut. And now we're doing the corner stitch again. I hope that's clearer for you guys than what I'm seeing right now. And approximately in the same spot, not exactly in the same spot, because then it's harder when you're going to pull it out. And we pull that nice and taut, nice and firm. You can see here, see how that's buckled a little bit? That's okay, that's just showing us that that wasn't in as far as it could be, and it's rectified that. If we end up with big buckles, we could have a problem. We're not pulling the sides in as firmly as we should be. But that's just a little bit, that we're working well. There's no buckling up here. There's no buckling on the front side. Again, continue to pull those edges taut. I'm actually getting this bigger hexagon. It might be the way I'm sitting too. My hands are cramping as I'm doing this. This is probably why I don't do it as often to finish it off. Now, I've got a notch in that. Don't panic if you don't know what to do. You can see that knot there, and there's actually a loop. So what you do is stick your needle in the loop, right through the middle of the loop, and then hold that side and pull it, and then it'll pull out. Just continuing around this hexagon. This is taking much longer than I thought it would. I apologise. But I want to make sure I'm explaining it clearly for you. Pulling that corner nice and taut. Now when I do these corner stitches, I'm only stitching through the fabric. I'm not going through the paper or the cardboard. I'm just stitching the layers of fabric, running the needle between the fabric and the card, the paper, to pull those corners in. But then the next stitches along the edges, oh, that got tangled a bit, so we don't want that to all screw up. There we go, that's better. So these next edge stitches, I am going through the paper or the cardboard. It's more of a cardboard than a paper, isn't it, really, if you pre-purchase them? If you purchase them pre-cut, I mean. We're nearly there, guys. So continuing through the paper, and again, as I explained earlier, a lot of people don't like to stitch through the paper, but it makes all the difference, especially the larger the hexagons or the shapes get. It makes such a difference to the finished product when you piece it all together. So if you can imagine, for example, this might be out, each hexagon might only be out by 1 mil. Like there might be 1 mil of give if I don't pull it in nice and firmly. The ones I bought from the op shop were up to 3 and 4 mil give, they set out. So once you join 10 together and they're only out by 1 mil, that's a total of 10 mil. That's huge. That's like a whole centimetre of difference. So when you go to sew that last one on, you're going to be out by this much. Your corners won't meet by a centimetre. This is why I'm trying to explain that. A lot of people don't think it's important, but if you want that nice, crisp, flat quilt as your final product, it makes a huge difference. Yes, it's a lot of effort. Yes, it's time consuming. But the amount of effort that goes into a handmade quilt in the first place, it's worth putting in the extra effort to make sure you get that beautiful end product. So now I'm on the last edge. I'm just going to make sure this is nice and taut, nice and firm against this card. And again, a lot of people wouldn't even do this edge. But like I said, if I don't, that's going to work out over time. By the time I come to sew them together, and I could potentially still be out, even though the rest of it's square, if I don't tack down this side, I could still potentially be out up to 3 or 4 mil when I come to stitch it. So now this is where we started. I'm just going to skip over that corner and then come back up, and that's it. I don't have to finish that off. I've done an extra couple of stitches to hold it in place, and I'm just going to cut off a short tail, and that will be ready to stitch together. Now I don't want to start stitching these yet because I had a colour pattern that I was going to do and I can't remember what it was, but I'll do one to show you how I do it. Now, how many times have I said now today? That's not good. How do I stitch my sides, my shapes together? Again, this may not be the traditional way to do it. It may not be what most people do. This is what I find works for me. This is not what I'd normally use to stitch it together. I'm just going to use this for this demo. When I was working in the quilt store, I think it might have been my manager told me that when we're stitching these shapes together, if you don't know what colour to use, or if you've got multiple colours in your quilt, in your hexagons, you should use a grey cotton. A medium coloured, not too light, not too dark, a medium coloured grey cotton, because apparently grey sort of fades into most colours and it's less visible. And again, I'd prefer to use a top stitch to sew together if I can. So this is similar to a top stitch for now, for this purpose. I'm just going to do a quilter's knot. And this needle's too big. This is a bit of a crowbar for this, but again, I'm just using it for this demonstration purpose so you can see it a bit more clearly on the monitor. I don't need as big a tail, so I'm going to snip that off a bit. Now, how I start this is, I've got my knot on my tail. Now I will come up underneath that fabric, between the fabric and the paper, and come out on one of those points. That's how I get started. Pull that in, make sure the knot's in the corner. Now we get our 2 hexagons to start with, put them facing each other, and if I'm not too tired, I will do a ladder stitch to join these together, and that is in one side or I think it's even a mattress stitch possibly. I think it's ladder stitch. And then I come over, alternating sides, and I'm just catching a small amount. Then I go over to the next side, catch a small amount. And then just keep alternating sides, trying to do each. When I'm changing sides, I'm going in beside the one that I just came out of. So, how can I explain this? The one I just came out of is here. I'm going in beside it in the next hexagon. And I keep alternating these stitches going up, changing from one side to the other. I can't bloody see without my glasses on. And I'm just catching, 2, maybe 3 mil of fabric at a time. I don't want to pick up too much. And I've exaggerated this for the demonstration purpose, but you can see the stitches I've done. It looks like I've done a ladder. If I turn it up this way, the rungs of the ladder. And then when I pull it firmly, gently but firmly, all those stitches pull in and almost disappear. If I was using a grey cotton, they would disappear. When you open it up, okay, because I haven't done enough, when you open it up, you can't see those stitches at all. So ladder stitch is the best way to go, but sometimes I get tired and I just do an overhand stitch, and those stitches will be visible if you do an overhand stitch. And you can use your quilt clips to hold this together as you're stitching, if that helps. I just find it's more things to get tangled up with. See, those stitches look crooked now. Oh, I need to remember to bring my glasses next time, that's for sure. And I'll just continue with my ladder stitch. Oh my gosh, I'm going cross-eyed. It doesn't help that it's overcast now and it's getting darker. I cannot see. Hang on, I wonder if these will turn on. Where are they? I've got lights on top of this stand. I can't remember if I've taken the batteries out or not. Must have taken them out. Let's have a look. Oh no, there's batteries in here. Not working. Obviously they've gone flat. Well, so much for that idea. I thought that might give me a bit of light to see what I'm doing here. Let's check. I'll check this one. No, that one's gone flat too. It's so humid where we are. I don't know how long he's had this before he gave it or lent it to me either, so that one's got a bit of battery acid in it. Might not work again. I didn't think he'd actually used it because it wasn't suitable. It's a bit of a bugger, but anyway, I've got battery acid on my fingers now. Well, that didn't help. I don't have any more light, so I'll just try and persist for now until I finish this edge. Oh, goodness. Maybe I should go inside and get my glasses. Because that does not look, what I can see so far, does not look very neat. Oops. Only wanting to pick up the black. Trying not to let my stitches get too big. Now, as I'm doing them now, I'm pulling them tight as I go because I don't need to show you that exaggerated stitch since I've already shown it. Oh, it does not look very neat. I can see bits of the thread coming through that I shouldn't be seeing. Oh, there's a problem with this blinking stand. It's very difficult for me to get it in a position so I can see and show you clearly what I'm doing. I did check the weather forecast before I came out here, and there was no rain forecast until early tomorrow morning. Well, it's not actually raining yet, it's just wind. Oh, man alive. If you could see my face right now, the way I'm squinting and trying to focus this so I can see. Oh, goodness me. I've been reading about how apparently you can do exercises for your eyes and essentially get rid of your glasses if you do these exercises. I've been doing the exercises. I'm sure my eyesight has deteriorated since I've been doing them. This is actually one of the exercises they suggest, to try and do things every now and then without your glasses on. Don't keep wearing your glasses because you become dependent on them. But I rarely wear my glasses regularly these days, so it just basically exercises the muscles in your eyes. They get lazy. Another one they suggested was to throw a ball to the dog, for example, and watch the ball so you throw it away from you, and then as it's brought back to you. So that exercises the long distance and close distance muscles and gets them to practice coming in and out again. But yeah, I don't think yet I've seen any improvement. Goodness me. I might have to give up because I'm finding this really bloody difficult. I can't see. I probably picked a poor colour. That yellow is very hard to see. That to me does not look neat from here. I'll be unpicking it anyway because I don't want these colours beside each other. Yeah, look, that's not very neat at all. You shouldn't see that. That shouldn't be visible like that. So just for demonstration purposes, I'll now do a bit of the overhand and show you the difference. So now I'm just catching both fabrics at once, and I'm just going to keep working my way up, catching both fabrics. This is how I see most, especially the vintage ones, pieced together. Now the other thing is you want to try and do this so you're not catching the edge of that paper as well, because if you want to reuse it, it will shrink that size a little bit, and the more you reuse it, the more that edge will get chewed away by your needle doing this. So this is just a simple overhand. It's a lot more efficient, it's a lot quicker, but if I'm doing them both correctly, which clearly I'm not because I can't see what I'm doing, this stitch will be more visible on the finished product. I'll try and get to the end and flip it back, and hopefully we can see a difference. Now we'll stop there, hey, and have a look. So, if you can see, this is where I've changed the stitch. This is the ladder stitch that should be invisible if I've done it correctly. Clearly I haven't done it correctly because it shouldn't look like that. I can see steps. It shouldn't look like that. And this is the overhand stitch. Now, what I've done here, to me, that does not look as visible as this. But usually, if this is done correctly, this stitch is a lot more visible. I hope I'm getting across what I'm trying to explain. So I might have to stop that, at least this for now, because I can't see, guys. I can't see in this light. And if I can't see, I wonder if you can't see either. Now I'm dropping things everywhere. So I thought before I go, I might just show you where I'm up to with the orange needle book. I've got a few needle books going at once, and I'm designing some things for my daughter and her fiance, and I've got a million things on the go, to be honest. But let's have a look at this. There are loose threads. I've got a lot of tacking stitches in it which will come out. I ended up stitching this piece of wheaty lace onto the front. The square crocheted medallion didn't look right, and one of you guys pointed that out, and I agreed when I did a few more auditions. So I landed on this. I nearly took this orange out because I've dyed it. I didn't think it worked, but when I've come back with fresh eyes, I've actually liked it. It is vintage linen. It is a vintage tablecloth. It was a cutter piece that was given to me years ago that was that damaged it couldn't be repaired, so I've dyed different bits of it. Here's the rain now. It's going to pour down. So we open it up. There's a pocket here. This is lined with doctor's flannel. We've got this hand-dyed vintage linen with the crocheted lace. Got this piece of linen. I've got to take that pencil mark out of there. That will change when I get rid of that. This is a piece of wool blanketing I've stitched in on the linen, so you can put your needles in there. This was a cutter piece that was given to me already cut up. Open it to the next page. Doctor's flannel pocket. This is a hanky. I've put some little hexagons on there. I've just been debating whether I should stitch around these. I don't think I will, just because this hanky is so fine. Well, it's not as fine as some, but I don't think I'll get the stitches to sit nicely. So I've crocheted that edge on that hanky as well. This is, some of you will recognise this as Petite Pan. I love that fabric, even though orange is one of my most disliked colours. And this is a bit of vintage cotton fabric I had. I've stitched this together so we have a pocket in the hanky. Then I've got a piece of wool felt. I'm still undecided as to whether I want to add this lace or not. Let me know what you think. Should I add that or remove it? We turn this page over to this centerpiece. I've only stitched this in the center, so there's a bit more space for you to tuck your pins and needles and things into the wool. And I still can't decide whether I should do blanket stitch around this. The previous ones I've done, I've blanket stitched around every edge. I don't think I need to on this, to be honest. But then when I come over, turn this page over, I'm in the middle of stitching this on, and I'm trying to do this. I had to stop last night because I couldn't see clearly in the dark with poor light. So I'm trying to blanket stitch this, but I'm trying to only go into the felt far enough that you're not seeing those stitches on this side. It's not a perfect method. Some of them are still a bit visible. And that makes me think that maybe I should do that blanket stitch around it to hide those stitches a bit. Then we've got the next hanky pocket. I feel like I need to put something on here. I was thinking a vintage puff, but the reason I haven't is because when I turn this page over, I've got these vintage yo-yos puffs here. Again, that's the back of that pocket. I feel like I should have something on here. Because the hanky was too big, it was too long and stuck out way too far, I've done a little flap. I was going to stitch a whole page onto that, but then I decided maybe I should just do these yo-yos. And then I've stitched this piece of linen with the cross stitch onto the back of that just to decorate it a bit. I've then put a little folded hexagon on there that I made from vintage cotton, and I stitched a little piece of a lace flower on the center. This is doctor's flannel. We turn over to the back of that linen piece, and then the last page is that hand-dyed vintage tablecloth, and then the pocket. I feel like the second half needs more work. It feels too bland to me. It's a bit of a chunky monkey and bits are spilling out, but I did want some of it spilling out. I did want it to be a bit, I wanted to see those layers coming out. Now originally I was going to use something like this as my tie on this one. But I'm now starting to think, I don't have orange, but maybe a velvet ribbon tie. I'm not sure, I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced it's the right colour. Or the other option, listen to that wind. This branch is starting to come down, so I might need to pack up. The other option's not the right colour, that's disappointing, is this woven ribbon with the butterflies. That might work. Or, sorry, I'm starting to get a little bit panicky, I think. There's debris flying everywhere. Or, I don't know if this is the right colour, let's just audition it. Or this woven ribbon, that might work, look at that. Wowzers, what do you think of that one? I think I like that. We'll see anyway. I'll finish the inside of the needle book and then we'll audition the wrap and see what we think, hey? But I've got 1, 2, 3, about 5 bags. I've got all this china. I've got 2 boxes. I've got a few things out here I need to start packing up because that wind's picking up again. There's debris getting flown around. We had a terrible storm last Friday or Saturday night. I thought the house was going to blow away. My poor dog had a nervous breakdown, literally. I had to medicate her because she was not coping with the storm at all. And I thought we escaped unscathed here. You know, there's some small branches down, there's a lot of leaves around. And then yesterday when I went to therapy, one of the ladies there said to me, the power is still out in some suburbs. I said, what do you mean? Because I don't watch the news. I don't have a TV. I got rid of my TV years ago at the advice of a friend, a dear friend. Thought she was crazy at first, but she was actually onto something. I go out of my way to not take notice of news. It stresses me so much these days. It may not be a good thing, but that's what I choose to do for my health. So anyway, she was reading the paper and telling me that there are still a few suburbs out in Newcastle that were still without power yesterday from the storm on the weekend, which is unusual. They're not normally out for that long. And then when I went for my walk today, as I said, my physio has told me he wants me to start walking every day again. I just walked down to the end of the street and there are some very, very large branches. You're not going to believe this. Look what's sitting on top of the box right beside me. My freaking glasses. They've been here the whole time, right beside me. What a goose. Anyway, when I went down for my walk, there are very, very, very large branches that have come down in that storm all over the place. I've recorded some. They're in my stories on Instagram today. And yes, I was quite surprised at just how bad it was. I did say to my family the next day, it did sound like some trees came down nearby. So I'd say that was those. Because massive branches, like, I can't even fit how big, rounder than this, had snapped off and fallen, and yeah, it was a bit full on. So now that I've been in a bit of a panic to get everything packed away, it sounds like it's going to die off again, or it has died off again. It's raining. I'm just currently rolling up my tape measure, if you're wondering what I'm doing. I've got so many ideas of what I want to do with this. Wouldn't that be so cute? By the time I get, obviously not this, but by the time I make a pin cushion to sit in there, and it's got this foot on the bottom. Now I'm going to be looking for more of these. I believe they're parfait bowls. It's the first one I've seen like this. I've seen others, but not with the foot like this. And then you could put all sorts of things, buttons, needles, all sorts of things in this little foot down here. You know what's going to happen, don't you? I will make this into this thing that I envisage right now. I want to do a pieced fancy thing in there. I used to want to do felted ones with all this detail, but I can't be bothered doing that now, so I'm going to do fabric instead. But anyway, I will get that done and think, I love this, I'm not going to sell it now. That's likely what will happen. And this crystal is so heavy. If you could feel the weight in this, it's unbelievable. I knew it was good when I picked it up, but I had no idea it was worth what it's worth. I'm just flabbergasted when I found that. Found out what it was worth online. If you missed earlier, I think when I googled it, that was over $150 just for that one parfait bowl. I kept thinking I should go back to that shop and see if there's any more. I know there weren't any more there, not the same as that. Not that we're out on the floor anyway. But I don't want to have another interaction with that manager. I still can't comprehend what the heck happened. I still can't I was still flabbergasted with that interaction. If you've only recently joined, in the beginning of this video, I talked about this interaction I had yesterday at the op shop. It was the most bizarre thing I've ever experienced. But complaining about that, I suppose, I forgot to mention, literally as I was walking down the road into that shop, I was thinking to myself, people have been so friendly. The last few times I've been out, people have been so friendly and so kind to me. It was heartwarming. And then that interaction, it was bizarre. So earlier that day, I went to the post office and I was served by the First Lady, and she explained to me what I needed to do all the mailings that I wanted to do. I had a bag full of parcels. And thank you all so much for, you guys have been buying from my D-stash and from my Made It store, and you honestly have no idea how helpful that's been. It's been helping me pay my vet bill and a few other bills like you wouldn't believe. I've still got a lot of catching up to do, but I'm determined to get on top of it. I'm determined to keep making items to get that little bit of extra in to help with those bills. My next goal was to get a new phone and a new phone stand, because they're on their last legs. Well, the phone stand finally died. I'm borrowing this one. But that goal's now shifted. My next goal is to get a natural medication for my doggo, because still paying off the medication and the treatment she had in December. It's working well, but it's not good for long-term use. It will damage her stomach, so I need to find something else. And the only product I can really find that will be suitable, that will do what we need it to do, help her manage her anxiety and her panic attacks, is CBD, and it's expensive, so I need to save up to buy that. So that's my next goal at the moment. Some of you might wonder why I spend money on these items when I've got these other things that are more important. And I know I don't need to explain, but I want to. Now, as you know, a lot of these are only 50 cents. But I can turn these into, at least double that. So that's where my thinking is behind spending small amounts of money on these items. I can wash them up, repair them, repurpose them, resell them. They can go into the needle books, they can go into the kits. If they're not suitable for either of those, or if I don't want to repair them to resell, I can just list them in a D-stash and get a couple of dollars for them. So that's my thinking behind that. And again, as I said, I know I don't need to explain that to you guys. I know I don't owe you an explanation, but I just want to let you know. Some of you might be wondering why I'm spending money on these items when I've got other pressing issues that need to be addressed. That's why this does bring me a bit more money when I do this. So I hope that makes sense, especially when I get the items so cheap. And that's why I put those other items back yesterday, the trio and the Bunnykins cups. No, they weren't expensive at $10 each for the Bunnykins, but that's $30, and that's $30 that I could put towards dog food or dog medication or vet bills, or more linen that I can then double or triple that money. That's why they went back. They weren't urgent. They were much more expensive than I expected at the time, so they went back on the shelf. And yeah, as I said, probably very affordable, probably very good prices, but not for me at the time. So I think that's about it today. I don't know where this storm's headed. It's still overcast. The rain's stopped. The wind has died down, but because we didn't get much rain, I'm suspecting it may pick up again. the light's not great, so I don't think there's much more I can show you guys today. I apologise that it's been so long between videos. I don't think I've done one since maybe last Friday, maybe Saturday. It's been very full on here. As I said, I've had a lot of family members that are not well. I've had, I don't even know how to explain this, and I wasn't going to, but I think it's important. My son has had, since Christmas, we had a couple of deaths on Christmas Day. Family members, elderly family members, or one of them was a friend's husband. And then since Christmas Day, my son has had 3 of his friends die of suicide. And my niece has had 5. 5. That's 8 people in total that our family knows since Christmas Day. That figure is mind-blowing. And that's just people we know. Can you imagine how many other people there must be? So I think I just want to say, if you ever need to speak to someone, please reach out. Please reach out. If you're struggling, don't try and do it on your own. I know what it's like, I understand. I can empathise at least. But these times are crazy, and this is one reason why I don't watch the news anymore. I hide in my little bubble, but I have to do that for my own health. And yeah, just reach out, guys. If you're struggling, just please reach out for help. In Australia, there's Lifeline. They're fantastic. You can call, I think it's a 131 number. I'll put that in the comments anyway. I don't know about other countries. I'll see if I can find any, but please, you know, if you get to that point, make that phone call. It can make all the difference. I've been making, I forgot to bring them out to show. I've been making kindness coins to share around. They're nothing special. It's nothing amazing or fantastic. It's just, I just have a master sheet of watercolour paper. I paint it. I do several layers of paint. I punch it out with a circle punch about so big, maybe 2 inches, 1.5 inches, I can't remember. I then do a lot of hand detailing all over it, even before I cut them out. And then I stick little verses on them, and it might just say something like, "You're doing great. I'm proud of you. Hang in there. You've got this. You look wonderful today. I love your outfit." They're just little encouragement verses, and it's just a bit of paper, a bit of watercolour paint. I try and make them look pretty, and it's just a bit of paper. I put them in little plastic sleeves. I send them, if I send a parcel to anyone, they'll get at least one of those in it. But my daughter and I, before she moved to Adelaide, used to do drops. So we'd go into shops, into public restrooms, into restaurants, you name it. And we'd just leave them around, you know, on shelves, in books, on, you know, hoping that people would find them. And yeah, sure, a lot of them might just get thrown in a bin, a lot of them might get tossed on the ground. But I know for a fact, from my own personal experience and from what other people have told me, sometimes you're in such a bad place and you feel so alone and so isolated. If you pick up something like that and you read that message, sometimes that tiny little message on that tiny little bit of paper makes the world of difference and can potentially save someone's life. So I've been doing those. I've been working on those for the last few days. I've got a bucket of them. I want to get some more done. I'll try and remember to share them next time so you can see what I'm talking about. And I know it's not going to change the world. but it might change the world for just one person, and if I can reach one person, I'm going to keep doing it. So yeah, that's where I'm up to. I also I've got an aunt in hospital who's not well. Very frustrated that I can't get in to visit her at the moment. And then on one day, I can't remember, Monday, maybe, I can't remember now. It was when we had the big storm the other day. I got a phone call to say my uncle was on his way to hospital. He had a punctured lung, and I said, why, how? Don't know, we don't know anything. I didn't get a call till the next day, which might have been yesterday, I can't remember, sorry, I've lost track of time, guys. The day before. He was trying to close the windows in the house, I believe, because the storm was moving in. He slipped or slid on the tiles in the hallway, crashed through the toilet door. This is what I've been told by my mum, who spoke to his daughter, to my cousin. Crashed through the toilet door, landed awkwardly on his back somehow on the toilet. He broke 5 ribs, punctured a lung, broke the nodules off. You know how the vertebrae have these funny little wings out the side? He's broken the side off 3 of those and was taken into surgery because he was bleeding. They couldn't find the bleed and his blood pressure was dropping and he kept crashing. And apparently they didn't find it the first time, so they had to go back in, and they eventually found a severed artery they had to repair. So I got a call today. Yesterday he was in recovery, he was doing well. Today he's not doing so well. His symptoms have worsened. It sounds quite complex and scary. So yeah, thinking of him at the moment as well. There's a lot going on. So if you don't see me as often, there's some of the reasons why, and I apologise, but I'll try and pop on as often as I can. And in the meantime, I'd just like to say thank you once again for joining me. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Again, if you ever find yourself struggling, if you need someone to talk to, make a phone call, pick up a friend, or speak to a friend or a family member. If you don't have anyone, or if you feel like you can't do that, ring Lifeline in Australia. Again, I'll put the number in the description box if you need it. And take care, guys. Look after yourselves and look after each other. Be safe and be kind. And until then, I'll see you next time. Thank you again for joining me.